In this video, we'll find out how to make a 2D character controller using Godot and C#. Okay, so here in the Godot editor, we're going to have to set up our inputs before we start coding our character controller. So if you head up to Project Settings, and go into Input Map, we can create a few variables for our input. So I'm going to create left, right, and jump. And now I'm going to map these to their respective keys. So A, an arrow for left, D and right arrow for right, and Z and spacebar for jump. Perfect. Let's create a new scene to create our character. We're going to be using a character body 2D node as our parent node, and then we're going to attach a sprite 2D node to show our character, and we're also going to attach a collision shape node to allow us to interact with the environment. So for our sprite 2D, we're just going to add some art. And I'm going to change the transform to be 5 times bigger than it currently is. And I'm also going to change the filtering to nearest so it's not so blurry. In our collision shape node, I'm going to create a new rectangle shape collision and start dragging it to the borders of where I want it on our character. Perfect. Now if we save this, I'm going to call this player, and I'm going to rename it up here as player as well. Now we can attach our C# script. So Godot comes with a basic character body 2D movement script already, but I'm not going to be using the template that they give us. In our script, we're going to define a couple of constant variables. So we're going to make a speed variable, public const float speed equals about 500 f for float. We're going to define our jump velocity, public const float jump velocity. And that's going to be negative 500 f because Godot negatives are up on the y-axis. And we're going to create our gravity, public const float gravity equals 500 f as well. We'll just set everything to 500 f for now. Now let's start adding some functionality to this. We're going to create a public override void underscore physics process double delta, and it did not include the p, so we're just going to fix that right now. We don't need the base. So basically this function will run on every frame, and this is where we're going to put our game logic. So let's create a vector2, and this will store our data, and so we're going to take velocity from our character body 2D, because we're going to be modifying the velocity throughout the script. Now let's do a couple checks. Character body 2D comes with a few nice functions for us to use. So if not is on floor, what are we going to do? Well, if we're not on the floor, we are going to add our gravity variable to our velocity. And then we're going to multiply it by delta, which we're going to convert to a float first. The reason we multiply it by delta is that at different frame rates, this would give us different effects on gravity. But if you multiply it by delta, at every frame rate, the gravity will behave the same. Now let's build our jump. If input.isAction just pressed jump, and if you remember, this is the same jump variable that we created in our input manager, and is on floor, because we don't want the player to be able to jump forever. Velocity.y equals jump velocity. So this will create our jump effect. Now let's create our basic movement. If input.isActionPressed left, what we're going to do is we're going to set our velocity.x to our speed variable in the negatives because we're going to be moving left on the graph, and that's negative. And I made a mistake here and need to make that equals. And then we're going to create an else if input.isActionPressed right. We're going to set our x velocity to speed. And then else we're going to set our x velocity to nothing. So if we take our hand off the key, our character will immediately stop moving. Now we need to reset our velocity to our modified velocity. So velocity equals vel. And we need to call move and slide, or else it won't process our calculations. So if we go back into Godot, save this, and add our player to our main scene, and run it, you can see he drops, he hits the ground, we can move left and right, and we can jump. But what if I want my character to jump at a shorter height if I take my finger off the jump key? Well, that's a simple change we can make. Let's head back into our script and create an else if statement below our jump if statement. So else if input is action just released jump and is vel.y less than 0. The reason we do this check is if they're falling already, we don't want to mess with their falling calculations because it'll create a weird effect that doesn't feel that great. So now we can just do vel.y equals vel.y divided by 2 because we don't want it to feel like we hit a ceiling if we take our finger off the jump key. You can see that we're going to get varying jump heights depending on when we release the jump key. Well, that's all for this video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you found this video helpful and you want more C# tutorials. See you guys.